Kelly? Don't tell me. What are you doing here? The voice cut sharply through the taut air of a winter morning. I stopped in my tracks for just a second and instinctively straightened my back. I felt embarrassed at the thought of being seen in such shabby clothes, but I refused to lower my head and hide my face. My pride wouldn't allow it. Slowly, I lifted my gaze and looked straight at the owner of the voice. Standing there was my grandfather, Frank. Behind him was a black luxury sedan, and the sight of my grandfather in his perfectly tailored coat formed a cruel contrast with the grimy concrete building behind me. At the entrance hung a sign that read, St. Mary's Transitional Housing for Students. Yes, my billionaire grandfather had just seen me walking out of transitional housing for homeless students. Grandpa. My voice was slightly hoarse from the cold, dry, early morning air, but it came out clearly enough. It's been a while. Suppressing my agitation, I forced myself to greet him calmly. He stared at me from head to toe as if he were seeing something unbelievable. Worn-out jeans, a cheap hoodie layered for warmth, and in my hand, a sports bag containing everything I owned. Why are you coming out of a place like this? Kelly, answer me. His voice was trembling, not with anger, but with deep shock and fear at the reality that his beloved granddaughter was living in student transitional housing. There are reasons, but I'm fine. I'm still going to school and I'm managing somehow. Fine? There's no way this is fine. He raised his voice and passersby turned around in surprise. Striding toward me, he grabbed my now thin arm tightly. What happened to the house? The house I gave you. I frowned at the words that burst from his mouth. The house? I didn't understand what he meant. What are you talking about? What house? The house I gave you 6 months ago for your 20th birthday? A furnished 3-bedroom house in the Riverside district. Why aren't you living there? His eyes were bloodshot, his expression desperate. I was confused. A house in the Riverside district? I had never even seen a home in such an upscale neighborhood. Grandpa, calm down. I never received anything like that. The only thing I got for my birthday was a card from Mom. Dad and the others said you were busy traveling overseas and that there wouldn't be a present this year. What did you say? His movements froze. I could feel his agitation rapidly harden into something cold and sharp. It was a face I knew well. The face of Frank, the Iron Man who had once been feared in the business world. You heard nothing? No keys? No deed? Not once. Even when I was practically thrown out of the house, no one ever mentioned anything like that. Slowly, he released my arm and clenched his back teeth as if swallowing something bitter. In the depths of his eyes, flames of rage burned fiercely. I see. Grace and David. He muttered the names in a low, growling voice. Get in the car, Kelly. We need to talk. But I have hospital training this morning. I'll take you. Before that, you need a proper meal and an explanation. There was no room for refusal in his tone. I let out a quiet sigh and nodded. There was no point in putting on a brave front. And somehow I felt that the mystery of this missing house held the key to what had derailed my life. As I climbed into the warm car, the softness of the seat, something I hadn't felt in a long time, nearly snapped the tightly wound thread of tension inside me. Tell me everything. How you've been living these past few months. And what happened to that house. Still staring out the window, I opened my mouth quietly. It's a long story, but if you're willing to listen. And so I began to speak. Sleep was a luxury for me. At the time, my average sleep was 3.5 hours a night. If I managed 4 hours, it felt like a miracle. A holiday. Every morning I woke up from sheer tension before my 4 a.m. alarm ever rang. I'd splash my face with cold water and look at the dark circles reflected in the mirror, whispering to myself, just a little longer, just 2 more years. Along with my nursing studies and clinical training, I was working 2 part-time jobs. From early morning until mid-afternoon, I endured grueling clinical rotations at the university hospital. In a constant state of tension, I ran around checking patients' vital signs, assisting with hygiene care, and writing reports, until my legs felt like they might give out. In the evening, I worked as a waitress at a diner near campus, and from midnight, after the diner closed, I cleaned office floors for a 24-hour cleaning company. That was also my study time. In empty, silent office buildings, I pushed a mop while reciting anatomy and physiology terms under my breath. During my 15-minute breaks, I desperately scanned a vocabulary notebook pulled from my pocket. "Kelly, you look awful again. Why don't you take a little time off?" The diner manager said it out of concern, but all I could do was shake my head. "I'm fine. I have to earn my rent and pay for my textbooks." That was the truth. I had nowhere I could rely on. The only saving grace was that my grandfather Frank paid my university tuition directly. It's worth investing in anyone who truly wants to learn. That was his policy. If it weren't for him, I would have dropped out of college long ago. When I dragged myself back to my parents' house after 2 a.m., exhausted beyond words, the living room lights were always blazing. The TV blared loudly, mixed with bursts of laughter. There, sprawled across the sofa, were my unemployed sister Ashley and her husband Chris, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and beer cans. "Oh, you're home, Kelly. You're late," Ashley said without taking her eyes off the TV. "Hey, could you run to the store and get some ice cream? Vanilla." "I just got back. Go yourself." "Huh, we're tired." "Tired? From lying around the house all day?" My parents were even worse. They took the $500 I paid every month toward household expenses as if it were their natural right. "Kelly, have you paid this month yet? The electricity bill went up, so starting next month, make it $600. "Mom, my part-time wages are already at their limit. Why don't you ask Ashley and Chris to contribute too?" The moment I protested, my mother's face hardened. "Ashley has it hard. She has 2 small children. You're single and carefree, aren't you? We're family. It's only natural to support each other." The word carefree stabbed into my chest like a sharp knife. What part of my life was carefree? Every day felt like walking a tightrope. If I caught a cold and missed work, I risked losing my food money for the following month. Still, I endured it. Someday, once I earned my license and became a registered nurse, I could leave this house and live on my own. That hope alone kept me going. One night, the moment I opened the front door, the rich aroma of roast beef and red wine filled my nose. My stomach growled loudly, against my will. Lunch that day had been nothing more than a single jelly drink gulped down on the move. I was dizzy from hunger and exhaustion, but I knew all too well that this feast wasn't meant for me. When I stepped into the living room, it felt like entering a different kingdom. The dining table was covered with lavish dishes, and my mother Grace, my father David, my sister Ashley, her husband Chris, and their 2 sons were eating cheerfully. "Oh, you're back?" My mother noticed me and paused with her fork midair. In her eyes, I caught a faint trace of annoyance, as if an interruption had arrived. "Welcome home. But I'm sorry. Today is Ashley's recovering from childcare party. We didn't prepare anything for you." Without a word, I took off my shoes and headed for the kitchen refrigerator. There should have been the salad chicken I'd splurged on with my own money after getting paid yesterday. My lunch for tomorrow. But when I opened the fridge, it was gone. "Hey, where's my chicken?" When I turned around, Chris wiped sauce from his mouth with a napkin and said casually, "Oh, that? Sorry about that. I used it as an appetizer earlier. The expiration date was coming up anyway, so I took care of it." Took care of it? That was my lunch for tomorrow. I bought it with my own money. "Don't be so picky, Kelly," Ashley cut in, swirling her wine glass. "It's just a few dollars. Why get so worked up? Chris is under a lot of stress from job hunting right now. If you're family, shouldn't you want to help your brother-in-law get some nutrition?" The last time Chris had gone to a job interview was over 6 months ago. I knew exactly how he spent his days: online games and sports on TV. My hourly wage is low. Do you have any idea how long I have to work just to afford that chicken? When I raised my voice, my father David slammed his hand on the table. "Kelly, how dare you speak to your sister like that? You're being narrow-minded. This is a good opportunity. Let's talk about money." He placed a thick envelope on the table. Just from the bulge of the bills inside, I could tell it was a substantial amount. He slid the envelope, not toward me, but toward Ashley. "Here you go, Ashley. This month's support. There's $2,000 in there." My eyes widened. $2,000. He handed it over effortlessly to a daughter who didn't work at all. "Thank you, Dad. This really helps," Ashley said, hugging the envelope with a beaming smile. "Wait a second. Dad, when I asked you for help with my textbook costs last week, you said you couldn't afford it, didn't you? So how can you give Ashley that much money every month? My mother answered with a sigh. Kelly, you really don't understand. Ashley has a family to protect. Appearances matter, and we can't let the children feel miserable, can we? They need dignity. Dignity? Don't I need dignity too? You're single. Living for one person is manageable. Ashley and her family are just in her charging phase of life. I swallowed my anger and retreated to my room, but the moment I opened the door, I was struck speechless. My small room, supposed to be my sanctuary, had been ransacked. The anatomy notes I'd spread across my desk were scattered all over the floor. My precious textbooks were scribbled over with crayons, and several pages had been torn out. On the bed, my nephews were jumping up and down with their shoes still on. What do you think you're doing? When I shouted, the kids burst into tears in surprise, and Ashley came rushing in. Hey, what do you think you're doing to my children? Look at this. My notes are ruined. I have a test tomorrow. They're just pieces of paper, aren't they? The kids were just playing. Try being more open-minded. Honestly, studying all the time really warps your personality. She tossed out those parting words and left the room with the children. When silence returned, I sank down onto the floor, clutching my torn notebook in my hands. I'll leave this house, no matter what. That determination alone kept me from losing my sanity. But I didn't know then. I didn't know that by that point already, my golden ticket out of this hell had been concealed and crushed by my own parents. My 20th birthday fell on a gloomy, rain-soaked Tuesday. I hadn't expected anything. I knew expectations only existed to be betrayed. Still, somewhere deep down, I was waiting to hear from my grandfather Frank. No matter how busy he was, he always sent me a card or called me on my birthday every single year. But my phone showed 0 notifications. When I got home late that night, dragging my feet, my parents and Ashley and Chris were gathered around the dining table, whispering in hushed tones. The moment I opened the door, they jerked their heads up and hurriedly hid the documents spread across the table. "Oh, Kelly, you're back," my father David said, clearing his throat theatrically. "Come to think of it, today's your 20th birthday, huh? Congratulations. Here." My mother Grace casually tossed me an envelope containing $20 worth of gift cards. "Thanks. Did Grandpa contact you?" The air in the room instantly went tense. My parents exchanged a brief glance. "Oh, about that. Your grandfather called. He's in South America right now, setting up a new business, somewhere without even proper reception. He said to give you his regards, but he doesn't have the time or means to send a present." "I see. If he's busy, it can't be helped." Her explanation sounded reasonable, but my instincts told me something was wrong. My grandfather wasn't that kind of person. Just then, Ashley let out a smile she clearly couldn't suppress. In her hand, I caught a glimpse of the edge of a glossy brochure she hadn't managed to hide in time. "Hey, Mom, don't you think this island kitchen is amazing? You could cook while keeping an eye on the kids." "It really is wonderful. And the living room is so spacious. Looks like it gets great sunlight too. Are you guys moving?" Ashley looked at me with a triumphant grin. "Yes, we finally found a house worthy of us." "Oh, did Chris find a job?" "Hey, watch your mouth." Chris snapped, beer in hand. "This is just, well, our luck turning around. Life's not so bad after all." I lost interest and headed for my room. They probably got the money from our parents again. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that among the documents they'd hidden was a property deed with my name on it. And that the wonderful new house Ashley was so excited about was the very house my grandfather had given me. The verdict came abruptly the week after my birthday. "I'll get straight to the point. We're moving out of this apartment at the end of the month," my father said in a businesslike tone after dinner. "Moving out? Where are you going?" "We're moving to Ashley's new house," my mother continued. "It's a wonderful place. We'll all live together and help take care of the grandchildren." Ashley snorted smugly. "That's right. There are plenty of rooms. In exchange for taking care of Mom and Dad in their old age, we prepared spacious rooms for them." "How did you even afford something like that?" "That's none of your concern," my father cut in sharply. "What is important is this. There's no room for you there." It felt as though time itself had stopped. What do you mean? Exactly what it sounds like. That house is a sanctuary for Ashley's family. You're 20 now, aren't you? Don't you think it's shameful for an adult daughter to keep leeching off her parents? Leeching. I pay my own tuition and living expenses. If anything, the ones leeching are Ashley and her husband. Watch your mouth, my father roared. Your sister has just seized a major opportunity in life, and instead of celebrating her, all you can think about is yourself and where you'll live. How selfish can you be? Selfish. You're telling me I'm losing my home. That's why we're telling you to become independent, my mother said, her voice gentle but her eyes cold. Take this as your chance to start living on your own. You'll be out by this weekend. Pack your things and leave. We won't tell you our new address. This is tough love, so you won't come crawling back. Try to understand our intentions as parents. Parental love. How could they even bring themselves to use such a word? Their true intentions were painfully obvious. They no longer needed the money I earned. That weekend, I left the apartment with 2 suitcases stuffed with everything I owned and a single backpack. My family had already moved their belongings out and left. Without me, with nowhere else to go, I eventually ended up at a student transitional housing facility on the outskirts of town. Nights there were never quiet. Coughing echoed from every direction, moans from people trapped in nightmares. The stench of bleach mixed with mold hung in the air. I was forced to provide a urine sample with the bathroom door open, right in front of a supervisor. I bit my lip until it bled, holding back tears as I complied. I was a future medical professional. I had never once touched drugs, and yet, in that place, I was nothing more than a number under supervision. At night, I slept clutching my backpack to my chest like a baby. Inside were my expensive medical textbooks and the little cash I had left. Even shoes were stolen there, so I tied my sneaker laces around my wrists before crawling into bed. At 5 a.m., we were shaken awake. After cleaning duties, I changed into my white clinical uniform in a public restroom near the station. That was where Kelly, the diligent and outstanding nursing student, existed. One rainy day, shaking with a high fever in the transitional housing facility, I scrolled through social media on my phone. A photo posted by Ashley appeared. In a spacious, modern living room, the whole family stood smiling, glasses raised, gathered around a glowing fireplace. The caption read, "Our first party in our new home. Grateful for the best family ever." Through the window behind them, I could see the beautiful night view of the Riverside district. Why was I shivering in a moldy bed while they warmed themselves by a fireplace? I cried until I had no tears left, burning with frustration and injustice. And then, the next morning, as I staggered out of the transitional housing facility, my grandfather Frank's car was waiting right in front of me. When I finished telling him everything, the feared Iron Man, Frank covered his face with both hands, his shoulders shaking as he cried. "I'm sorry, I was a fool. I trusted your parents too much." He wiped his tears and looked at me with eyes full of resolve. "Kelly, listen carefully. That house Ashley is living in, the one in Riverside, I bought it with my own money and registered it in your name. It is your house." "What?" "The deed and the keys were entrusted to your parents through my lawyer. I told them it was a surprise for you. They stole it, deceived you, and even drove you out." A cold chill ran down my spine. That house, the one Ashley had bragged about as being worthy of them, was mine? That can't be true. It is, and I'll prove it. My grandfather placed me in a luxury hotel suite and made sure I ate properly. While I rested, he called my mother Grace. "Dad, how's the business in South America?" Her syrupy voice came through the speaker. "Going well. By the way, how is Kelly doing? I haven't been able to reach her." "Oh, she's doing great. She's enjoying living on her own in an apartment near her school. She said she wants to focus on her studies, so she asked us not to contact her too much." "A lie? They didn't even know where I was." "I see. Actually, it looks like I'll be able to come home this Christmas. I was hoping we could all gather as a family." "Really? That's wonderful. Then you must come to the new house." "Oh, a new house. That sounds delightful. Kelly will be there too, I assume." "Of course. Yes. I'll invite her." Another lie? After ending the call, my grandfather spoke coldly. You heard that, Kelly. They wouldn't care even if you were dead, as long as their lies weren't exposed. He stood and gazed out the window. I've already contacted my lawyers, property records, transfer histories. Everything will be examined. And then, Christmas. He turned back to me and smiled gently. Until then, rest here. And on Christmas, you'll wear the finest dress and return with me to your house. On Christmas Eve night, I wore a deep crimson velvet dress my grandfather had chosen for me. You're beautiful, Kelly. This is who you were always meant to be. We stepped into the waiting limousine and then we headed toward the Riverside district. Soon, the car stopped in front of a grand estate with an imposing gate. There it was, the house I had dreamed of. A beautiful brick exterior. But hanging on the front door was a tasteless wreath that read, "Welcome to the Smith family." Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. My grandfather rang the doorbell. From inside came my mother's cheerful voice. Coming, it must be the pizza delivery. The door opened. Merry Chris. The smile that had been spread across my mother's face froze instantly. Standing in front of her were the father who was supposedly in South America, and the daughter who was supposed to be missing. Father. And Kelly? This can't be. Why are you here? We were invited. My grandfather said coldly. This is a party at your new house, isn't it? Get in. He brushed past my mother and strode confidently into the entry hall. When we entered the living room, the scene before us was a full-blown feast. The table was covered with more food than anyone could possibly finish. On the sofa, Ashley was spreading out a brand new designer handbag, while Chris puffed leisurely on a cigar. My father David was in high spirits, carving the turkey. Hey Grace, who's at the door? Don't tell me the cake's already. He looked up, knife still in hand, and froze. The air in the room turned vacuum silent in an instant. Well, David, Ashley, Chris, you seem to be enjoying yourselves. In my granddaughter's house. The weight of those words alone seemed to drop the temperature below freezing. Grandpa, you said you weren't coming back until next week. Plans change. My grandfather pointed his cane toward the wedding photo of Ashley and Chris hanging on the wall. Explain this to me. Why are you living in the house I gave to Kelly? And why was Kelly forced to sleep in transitional housing for homeless students? Homeless? My father rasped, staring at me in my dress. What are you talking about? Kelly was living in an apartment. Silence. My grandfather's shout cracked like thunder. I'm not here for excuses. We are settling everything here and now. The police and the lawyers are already on their way. This is not a family meeting. This is a trial. Police? From afar, the sound of sirens began to grow louder. Dad, wait. This is all a misunderstanding. We were going to tell her today. We gave the house to Ashley. She has a family. She deserves it more. My mother screamed, trying to grab my grandfather's arm, but my grandfather slapped her hand away. There is no misunderstanding. What you did to Kelly is a crime. Embezzlement, forgery of private documents, fraud. At those words, Ashley, trembling, cut in. But, Grandpa, Kelly is single. She can't manage such a big house alone. I have children. Wouldn't it be more reasonable for the whole family to use it? Kelly would understand, right? Right, Kelly? She looked at me desperately, her eyes pleading. Please go along with it. I slowly shook my head. No, Ashley. I never agreed to anything. I wasn't even told this house existed. You hid the documents, lied to me, and then threw me out. That was to encourage your independence. My father began, but before he could finish, 3 police officers and a lawyer entered. Mr. Frank Smith, we're here after hearing of your report. No? Are you going to arrest us? Ashley screamed. We are not making arrests at this time, the lawyer said calmly. However, this property belongs to Miss Kelly Smith. You have no legal right to reside here. This constitutes unlawful occupation, and you are required to vacate immediately. Immediately? From now? Chris shouted. It's snowing out there. We have kids. Where are we supposed to go? That's none of my concern, my grandfather spat. Did you worry about where Kelly would go when she was trembling alone in the dead of winter? Living in transitional housing? Kelly spent 5 months in hell. You will now spend far longer facing the consequences of your own stupidity. Please, forgive us. My mother collapsed to the floor. If the monthly support stops, we can't survive. Support? That ends today. I've instructed my asset management firm to permanently stop all transfers to you. I've also revised my will. You will not receive a single cent. No, that's impossible. 72 hours, a police officer announced. You have 72 hours to collect your personal belongings and vacate. Formal eviction proceedings will follow. What followed was pure chaos. Ashley ran around clutching her handbags. Chris tried to carry out expensive liquor bottles and was stopped by the police. My parents screamed at each other, hurling blame back and forth. This was the true face of the family I had once longed to be loved by. They were nothing more than parasites, bound together by my grandfather's money and my sacrifice. At last, my grandfather delivered his final judgment. Never come near Kelly again. If you attempt to contact her, I will personally make sure you spend the rest of your days in prison. The heavy front door slammed shut. The sound was deep, final, and strangely refreshing. It marked the end of my past. It's over, Kelly, my grandfather said, pulling me gently into his embrace. This is your true home. I buried my face in my grandfather's chest, tears streaming down my face. They weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of rebirth. 6 months passed after that upheaval, and spring arrived. My home is now wrapped in gentle sunlight. The living room, once cluttered and gaudy with my family's unchecked desires, has been reborn as a simple, calm space. As for what became of them afterward, this is what I've heard through the grapevine. My parents eventually divorced after tearing each other apart with constant fighting. My father, David, unable to find steady work because of his age, is scraping by with a traffic control part-time job. My mother, Grace, after going around begging friends for money, was abandoned by all of them and now lives in an old public housing unit. And my sister Ashley and her husband, Chris, for the first time in their lives, they are facing the reality of working up a sweat to survive. Ironically, the job Chris ended up with is as a night shift cleaner at the very same cleaning company where I once worked. Ashley, meanwhile, is frying potatoes in a fast food kitchen soaked in grease. They complain about back pain and low wages, apparently, but those are exactly the hardships I once endured in silence. A few times, letters and missed calls came from them. We're sorry. Don't you want to see your parents? And finally, please help us financially. I fed every letter into the shredder and blocked every number without hesitation. Would that seem cruel? No. This is a necessary wall I built to protect my dignity. I've now safely reached my final year of nursing school. My grandfather Frank often visits on weekends, and we spend time tending the garden together. You've grown strong, Kelly, he says, smiling softly. Through this experience, I gained an invaluable lesson. Kindness without boundaries is not a virtue. It's a weakness, an opening for malicious people to exploit. True love does not mean accepting every unreasonable demand. Having the courage to say no, and respecting one another as independent individuals, that is what makes a healthy relationship. Today, I live without being exploited, without reading anyone else's mood, steering my life by my own will. My true life has only just begun.